Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Vasco. I'm the business development representative here at Execulink, passionate about delivering awesome solutions for our customers. I'll be discussing how to create strong Wi-Fi connection in your home and the various technologies you can use to enhance it.
My name is Eric Davies, and I'm a sales manager at Execulink Telecom. Today, I'll be discussing the technologies you can use to plan and design your wireless network for optimal performance.
First off, I'd like to thank Chelsea and the Ingersoll Chamber of Commerce for letting us host this webinar today. Today, we'll be talking about how to future-proof your Wi-Fi connection for remote and in-office work. A poor connection can have major impacts on your business, including decreased productivity, loss of revenue, and increased employee frustration. We're going to explore the technologies that you can use to identify issues and effectively troubleshoot your Wi-Fi connection. First, we will start by covering how to manage your Wi-Fi remote work setting and in small and medium-sized businesses. We'll pause to do a brief Q&A period at this point to see if anyone has any questions. Feel free to submit your questions in the chat or unmute yourself to ask questions during that time. Then we will discuss what you can do to enhance your Wi-Fi connection in larger office spaces. We'll share a case study example of a retirement facility, a theater, an indoor marina, exploring how they enhanced their Wi-Fi. We'll also be doing a Q&A at the end of the session. If any questions come up during the presentation, please share them in the chat and Chelsea will ask them on your behalf at the end. Just a little bit about Execulink. We are a locally owned and operated business servicing small towns in southwestern Ontario since 1904. Our fiber networks continue to expand throughout the southwestern Ontario, including parts of Ingersoll. We are always striving to innovate, provide personalized solutions for our customers, and exceptional ongoing support.
Thanks, Vasco. Before I get started, we want to kick things off with a bit of a discussion. Does anyone out there want to share some of the challenge they face when it comes to Wi-Fi, either in their home or their office? What are some challenges you guys are seeing?
That's actually why I joined. We sometimes have a poor connection at home, like when a couple people need to use Zoom or something. So this is the test because my husband is on Zoom in another meeting at the moment. So we'll see how this works.
Perfect. So things like buffering, having issues when multiple people are competing for bandwidth at the same time.
Yes.
You know, that's exactly the type of thing that we're going to talk about today. So today we're going to review the most common problems that we face in the Wi-Fi world, whether it's home or business. I'm sure we've all experienced these at one time or another. You know, the topics that we're going to cover are really going to cover four things. The first is slow or inconsistent speeds. And I'm sure we've all experienced the spinning wheel while trying to download a file or do a Zoom meeting or stream a video. Second, we're going to look at intermittent connections throughout the day. Maybe there's times in the day where you struggle. Maybe first thing in the morning, your speeds are fantastic. But as you get to midday and those peak periods, you know, you're challenged with your bandwidth. Next, we're going to look at the ability to prioritize quality of service or QoS for specific uses. You know, you have the ability within your network to prioritize some aspects of it like voice versus others like web browsing. And then lastly, we're going to talk about dead zones. So maybe you have a great connection when you're in a central location in your house, but when you go to a basement or you go to an office that's upstairs, then you have some connectivity challenges. So to combat these issues, we look at three fundamental metrics. The first is signal strength. This tells us how loud the signal is throughout your coverage area. You can think about this like a loudspeaker at a Walmart, you know, communicating over the ambient noises of the shoppers. If the shoppers are really loud, the loudspeaker can't outpace it. The second thing we're going to look at is airtime utilization. This measures how the frequency is being used. If you have too many devices taking up space, you're going to be challenged with bandwidth. And the last thing we're going to look at is interference. And this will show you how other devices can cause issues with your wireless network. And this can be like ordering food in a loud restaurant. The order won't be heard if the music is playing too loudly. So a simple Wi-Fi setup is considered a small office or a home office. In areas like this, you can centralize a single router or access point and effectively capture about 1,000 to 1,500 square feet without any issue. However, as some of you have probably experienced, this isn't always the case. In these situations, a solution beyond a single router or access point may be required.
Thanks, Eric. Okay, let's talk about what is complete Wi-Fi. Exactly's complete Wi-Fi solution, the premium router and the mesh node, have the technology built in to overcome connection issues in smaller spaces like your home office. This router and node combination allows for a higher quality Wi-Fi signal in your home or business with faster speeds, improved Wi-Fi coverage, and increased stability for video calls. We conducted an internal study at Exactlink when testing the premium router to see the difference compared to the traditional routers. This device has also greater Wi-Fi coverage area, providing stronger connection in problem areas. The improved signal stability also decreases video call drops. The enhanced performance of the premium router is accomplished through auto-correcting features that improve speed, coverage in problem areas, and stability. Customers can view wireless stats for each device in their home. This allows for proper placement of your device when installing them and troubleshooting when they are not getting the optimum speeds. With the ability to add a mesh Wi-Fi node, you can expand your network to blanket your whole home in strong Wi-Fi. Okay, when deciding if you need to add a mesh Wi-Fi node or an extender to your home, first you should consider your home layout and what factors have that influence your signal. Normally, moving your router to a more centralized location in an open area, away from electronics, cement walls, steel doors, or enclosed areas will provide a better signal. If that's not possible, we suggest adding a node to the hard-to-reach areas. Next, we must determine the placement of the mesh Wi-Fi node. For example, in baseball, when a ball is hit to the outfield with the runner on base heading home, the outfielder won't throw directly to home. Instead, he will throw it to the second baseman, aka the cutoff person. So the second baseman can easily throw it to the catcher and tag the runner out. This is essentially how a Wi-Fi node or extender works. They should be in between your router and your problem internet area. If your office is having connectivity problems, adding a mesh node in your office will not help. You will need to have that mesh Wi-Fi node in between your router and your office. Okay, there are a few features that modern routers offer to improve your Wi-Fi connection, including MIMO, which is multiple input and multiple output. This allows for devices to talk to the router at once. This decreases the time each device has to wait for a signal and dramatically speeds up your network. Another feature is band steering. This automatically connects your device to the best available Wi-Fi frequency in your home. The modern routers have dual support, which means there are two Wi-Fi radio signals, the 2.4 gigahertz band and the 5 gigahertz band. Band steering will automatically select which frequency is best to reduce connection drops. Some people choose to separate these two bands to have separate Wi-Fi network names for each band frequency. This would involve connecting certain devices to 2.4 band frequency and network and other devices to the 5 gigahertz band frequency and network. Lastly, a unified SSID. The premium router offers a unified SSID, which means that both of these bands, 2.4 and 5 gigahertz, are controlled under one Wi-Fi network. What that means is remember only one Wi-Fi network name and one password, and you will get to the right frequency for all your devices. This next slide is a great illustration of the premium router and the regular router. The image on the left shows a typical router Wi-Fi coverage, demonstrating the limitations many routers have. The image on your right is the Wi-Fi signal strength of a premium router. The premium Wi-Fi router improves performance by reducing interference and focusing the wireless signal directly to your device using beamforming technology. Beamforming focuses the signal direct to the devices rather than having the signal spread out in all directions from a broadcast antenna. This technology can help improve wireless bandwidth utilization and increase wireless network range in your home office. Now, our technical support team has been following up with customers using complete Wi-Fi system, and we've received valuable feedback. For example, one customer needed internet in his shed in their backyard. Initially, they ran an Ethernet cord to move the premium router into the shed. However, they still had coverage issues in the house. After consulting with our team, they decided to add a mesh Wi-Fi node. This improved connectivity in the house. And allowed them to roam freely in between all areas seamlessly with a good Wi-Fi connection. Okay, we're now at the part of the presentation where we will discuss traditional spaces rather than work from home. But before we get started, I would like to recap what we've discussed so far. So we've looked at common Wi-Fi issues and what metrics we look at to address them. We looked at the situation when you should use a mesh Wi-Fi node or extender and the best practices for identifying the right spot placement for these devices. And lastly, features of modem routers that improve your Wi-Fi, such as band steering and beamforming. But before we move on to the next part of the presentation, does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask in the presentation so far? If there are no questions, then we'll move on to Eric.
All right. Thanks, Vasco. Now let's talk about larger buildings and enterprise solutions. If you're not working from home and need Wi-Fi in a larger office space, there are more in-depth tools that allow for better troubleshooting. Execulink can leverage various technologies to identify interference and implement solutions that will anticipate capacity growth. There are also cloud-managed solutions to troubleshoot and make changes to your network in real time. One example of these technologies is a spectrum analyzer. We recommend this solution for small and medium-sized businesses, and we would not use this in a residential application. Right now, you're looking at real-time spectrum analysis of a 2.4 gigahertz wireless network. There are 11 channels on a 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi. However, only 3 are typically used, 1, 6, and 11, due to their distance apart from each other. Your router or access point will choose one of those 3 channels, whichever is the most free. Here, we can see 2 prominent networks on channels 6 and 11. The list below shows the many other routers that are competing for bandwidth on the network. Channel 1 is relatively unused in this example. However, it gives a great demonstration of the noise floor. Noise floor is the ambient noise that can reduce signal strength and signal quality. This is like trying to talk to someone at a loud party. Sometimes you can't hear what they're saying above the noise around you. The waterfall analysis on the left takes a snapshot of the signal over time. We can see if a particular channel is busy or noisy with interference and then adjust accordingly. The spectrum analyzer allows us to look for interference spikes or utilization. We'll show some examples, but let's first look at some interferers. Baby monitors, Bluetooth devices, wireless headsets, appliances such as microwaves, or audio transmitters all compete for bandwidth on the 2.4 gigahertz network and add to airtime utilization. Airtime utilization is a metric used to gauge a channel's overall traffic. It's represented as a percentage. The higher the percentage, the more congested the network becomes. When the network becomes overutilized, you will have some performance issues. Let's look at a couple examples in real time. In this example, we get a glimpse of how a simple everyday item like your microwave can wreak havoc on a network. Pay special attention to the fact that our microwave is not limited to an individual channel and can have a negative impact over a broad range. This illustrates how an everyday appliance can impact the quality of your wireless network. This next example is actually a cell phone sending a file via Bluetooth. Notice how the Bluetooth moves along many channels with those half peaks across the entire spectrum. This is actually in an effort to avoid interference. Think of it like skipping a rock across a lake rather than doing a cannonball. It can still cause interference and will add to a channel's airtime utilization, but only for a brief period of time. The past examples have shown how interference from other devices can impact our wireless network speed and health. Let's now take a moment to look at maybe the most important factor that contributes to your wireless health: placement. Identifying the best spot for a router or access point is crucial, and the impact location can have on signal strength can be demonstrated in this visual. When planning your network, begin by placing your router or access points where people need connectivity the most. Next, get as many devices on the 5 GHz spectrum as possible, either manually or via band steering, to eliminate as many interferers as possible. Let me now walk you through a case study where we were able to bring all of these practices together. The challenge we faced was a long-term care facility that was experiencing VoIP calls dropping, dead zones, and guest devices crowding the network. You can see in this map areas that needed attention noted in shades of red, and areas that coverage was acceptable noted in green. The gray spots represent an absolute dead zone. In this scenario, the customer had placed entry-grade routers around the building in areas that weren't necessarily ideal and did not effectively separate the Wi-Fi channels, so there was a lot of interference from other devices. Our customer placed the routers in central areas, so signal strength was very poor in the hallways. Now, you can visually see the quality of signal is spread a lot better through the building after we deployed our Wi-Fi solution. We placed access points where they would be most used and covered hallways where dead zones were before. We set all access points to channels where they wouldn't compete for signal or experience channel interference. We also set up band steering so modern devices could connect to the 5 GHz when available automatically. Additionally, we established Wi-Fi priority for critical service. In this case, their VoIP phone system. This is known as QoS, or quality of service. This prioritizes some applications, such as voice, and lessens priority on other services, such as streaming or gaming. All of this led to a very healthy wireless network and a happy customer. Another example of the services we can provide, let's look at a live performance theater that was struggling with their internet and Wi-Fi before switching to ExecuLink. The staff struggled with Wi-Fi connectivity when scanning tickets, processing payments, and running presentations. They needed stronger Wi-Fi in the box office, lounge, and theater. The theater's management team wanted to upgrade their ticketing software. In order to support this change, they knew these connection issues needed to be addressed. To resolve these concerns, our technicians and sales team worked with the theater staff to determine that a 90x10 speed plan was right for them. The theater building was old and large, which can hinder wireless deployments. The theater went from one router in the main auditorium to a fully managed network with several access points strategically placed throughout the building to allow for an enhanced Wi-Fi coverage. On the right, you can see the blueprint of the first floor of the building. The existing IT space is indicated in a red box, and the new access points ExecuLink added are indicated with blue dots. Here is the second floor blueprint of the theater. These locations were chosen based on where coverage was needed the most: in the auditorium itself, the hallway where tickets are scanned, and in the bar area where patrons gather. The improved connection made moving to their new ticketing software easy. Presentations or performances were no longer interrupted by connections issues. When the global pandemic hit, the theater had to cancel its performance season and move staff to working from home. They needed to remotely connect to the theater's secure network. Knowing that the upgraded network in the building was reliable was incredibly valuable and relieved some of the stress during a tumultuous time. In the year the theater has been working remotely, connecting to the organization's files and systems has never been a concern. Managing the transition to work from home was seamless, but the theater certainly looks forward to return to live performances in the near future. For our last example, we'll use a larger outdoor space, a marina. ExecuLink was requested to give a full survey and determine the best way to provide a great Wi-Fi solution so boat owners could enjoy video streaming right from the comfort of their slips. There were a lot of unique challenges at play here: the size of the space, the quantity of the boats, and unexpectedly, there was a lot of interference to account for. In order to provide a high enough throughput for video, we needed to have a wireless signal strength at or above 70 decibels and account for the wireless network for a large amount of people to use at the same time. These are metrics we simulated during our survey, but first let's look at the physical layout of the survey area. You can see our path around the boat slips indicated in green, and prior to the survey, we set our network requirements, so when we pull up our visualizations, we'll be looking at them with our requirements in mind, since every situation is unique. At a glance, we can also look at a pass-fail of overall wireless network health, indicating the spots that need attention noted here, with some reasons identifying why those areas failed. The beauty of this planning tool is that we can do all simulations, planning, and adjustments without having to install any hardware and with a limited investment of time. With this particular case, the failures were due to inadequate secondary coverage. This is sometimes unavoidable based on a customer's price point or requirements. We could easily add a redundant AP, but customers may decide it's not necessary or might not be able to do so. In this specific case, where there was areas of secondary failure, we couldn't put an additional AP at the end of a pier due to health and safety reasons. One thing we gained by doing this survey is we discovered that a surprising amount of boat owners are using their own wireless repeaters. This caused interference and dramatically changed our deployment approach. If we had not surveyed, this would have required a lot of reinstallation and reconfiguration. We covered a great deal of material today. Let's recap some of the key points. First, to enhance coverage in a home office, considering adding a router with mesh capabilities to enhance wireless coverage. Second, take advantage of modern routers with auto-correcting features such as band steering and beamforming to improve connectivity. Next, we talked about how everyday items such as baby monitors, Bluetooth devices, and appliances add interference to the 2.4 gigahertz network and impact your overall signal strength. We also discussed how identifying the best placement for a router or access point is crucial for consistent connectivity. And lastly, our case studies demonstrated how ExecLink can troubleshoot larger Wi-Fi deployments to ensure strong network health for both indoor and outdoor applications.
Thank you, Eric. And thank you for joining us in today's webinar. We are passionate about delivering strong Wi-Fi and hope you learn more about your Wi-Fi, whether you're working from home or in your office. We will now be taking questions that you may have regarding the topics we've discussed.
So if no one has any specific questions, or if you think of some while we continue, we do have some common questions that we've prepared. So I guess the first one is, Vasco, is it possible to stop Wi-Fi interference entirely?
Unfortunately, no, it's not possible. Many household devices and materials can cause Wi-Fi interference in your home, such as your TV, your neighbor's router, your oak TV stand that holds your peripherals, your furnace, and even your microwave, as discussed. With that in mind, you can try moving your router to a more open space and talk with us to see if ExecLink Mesh Wi-Fi node will be a better solution for your home. Now, another question we get, Eric, is what is required to do a Wi-Fi survey?
So for a business that's interested in having a survey completed, while it's not always necessary for deployment, a floor plan is definitely helpful. It allows us to plan around existing obstacles within your workspace, such as walls or shelves, which could really impact the strength of a signal. Without a floor plan, we rely more on real-time cues like signal drops or interference. This is effective. However, it can take longer and lead to unexpected surprises when we're on site. For diagnosing an existing deployment, we use our other tools to combat trouble areas, such as the spectrum analyzer.
Thank you. Another common question we get is, what type of symptoms would a business need to suffer to validate the need for a survey?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So, I would mimic those to what you're seeing in the home, and there's similar challenge, right? If you have an office or outdoor space that is currently suffering from slow speeds, intermittent connections, we can certainly help you. We've made every effort to make surveying and troubleshooting affordable and non-intrusive. We look at the true signal strength of your router or IPs and can identify what's impacting your network. And I guess, Vasco, lastly, what other services do you offer to support remote work for those that might have to be working at home instead of in an office right now?
I think it's a great question. We have the business phone solutions that can allow your team to function and even thrive from a remote office workspace. Our hosted phone solutions allows you to customize your call flow and replicate a dynamic office environment, all from a mobile phone. Some of the features include flexible extension, soft phone capabilities, a premium attendant, and multiple line hunt group.
Perfect. Excellent. Thank you, Vasco. That's everything we have prepared. Are there any other questions that have come up from the group? Okay, so we have a question about the price point on the router mesh node. So our standard router starts at $695. Our premium router that includes a lot of the features that Vasco spoke about today, specifically the band steering, the MIMO, the beam forming, that's our premium router. It starts at $995. And then if you want to add additional mesh nodes, those can be added at $595. Now, unless you are in a very large residential setting, or you have a really bad dead zone in your house because of distance or construction materials, what we recommend is to start with the base premium router. We often find that on its own can solve a lot of challenges that people are having. And then after going to that, if you do have a trouble area in your house, then you could look at getting a mesh node. Any other questions or comments? Well, if that's everything, on behalf of Vasco and myself and ExecuLink, I'd like to thank everyone for their time that you took out of your day-to-day to meet with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.